Welcome to the Impatient Entrepreneur Podcast, a show where we hear from entrepreneurs and business owners who are chomping at the bit to make their mark on the world. I'm your host, Lauren Quidar Cockrell. Now, let's hurry up and get to the good stuff. Welcome back, friends. I could not be more delighted to introduce you to someone very near and dear to my heart. Lynn Morrissey is so wise and wonderful. She's a client, she's a friend, and she's changing the conversation around aging through her platform, SilverSavvy. Lynn, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. And thank you for those generous comments. I couldn't be more pleased to be here. I was looking forward to this.
Me too. We were chatting before we hit record. Today is November 5th, 2024, and we both live in the United States. And so it's election day here. And we're just very excited to get to talk to each other on a day
Yes, we are.
It's emotional and exciting.
It is very emotional, exciting. I've been online following the news all day. So it's going to be an exciting day, hopefully.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so Lynn, tell us, what is SilverSavvy?
Well, SilverSavvy it's my passion. It's my life right now. SilverSavvy actually was born out of my experience in home care, watching folks over 60 looking for products and services and resources in one place online. So I developed SilverSavvy with the idea being that, there's a certain types of products that we might be looking for as you search on Amazon and the 12 million products that are on Amazon. Mm-hmm. So I've curated a series of products focusing on those of us in various stages of our life. I've also developed a number of consultative services for those that might be looking for home care support, those that might be looking for help with their long-term care insurance. I'm a certified fitness trainer and aging specialist, so I've developed fitness programs that really help those of us over 60 to age better. And a lot of us who go to the gym and might have a personal trainer, you're not getting a custom workout plan that really talks to your body's function. You're getting most likely a fitness plan that's really suitable for someone, 40 and younger. So, my goal is to really be laser focused on those of us, over 60 and developing those products and services that we need most.
And how did this become a focus for you? What drew you to this? In addition to just that this is the season of life you're in, but how did this become something that really became a business for you and your life's work at this point?
Well, I grew up in financial services and then moved into home care. I bought a couple of home care companies, and watching folks navigate online, navigate the internet, looking for information, looking for resources, looking for products for either themselves or a loved one. They struggled. You're working with a family to, set up home care, and they're online on Amazon or some other website buying product after product after product, or, jumping to a store, coming back, going online. So I thought, what if we thoughtfully put together products and services dedicated just to them and various scenarios that you might be in the course of your life. And so this is really, it's an opportunity for me to learn what are my clients, my customers going to want. And so the idea being that I'm in a nimble situation where I can, change what the products are that I'm offering online. I can, change what services I'm offering if I get feedback. So this is just as much, born out of my experience as it is kind of an open opportunity for our customers to share with me, I really could use this, service. I really could use this, this product. Another thing that we're doing is we're partnering with kind of the best in class resources. So, my team has certain expertise in terms of understanding home care, understanding long-term care insurance, and several other, expertise, but I'm also partnering with others that have expertise like brain health or estate attorneys or sexuality experts. Those of us over 60, we don't talk about our sexuality. We don't talk about the things that might be impacting us as we get older. So bringing in those resources and kind of having an opportunity for folks to go online and have a series of experts that they can turn to for support, I think is something that is A, missing online, and B, something that is I'm hoping will be well received.
Absolutely. And why do you feel like this is missing right now? Why do you feel like you're one of the few voices advocating for this over 60 generation?
Well, there really isn't a lot of solutions online. I think people think that older Americans are not tech savvy, and that's actually not the case. We
Hmm.
are, and I think COVID really pushed a lot of this to happen a lot faster. But those of us over 60, we are looking for solutions online. We are like anyone else. We're a lot more sophisticated with regards to technology. It's a lot easier to use than ever before. And at the end of the day, there's not a lot of resources. I mean, I can think of 3 or 4 companies that focus on folks over 60, and I want to change that dynamic. And I also, as someone who is aging, I don't think of myself as an older American person. I don't think of myself as a senior. So I want to change that dialogue.
Hmm.
I don't think of myself as any different than any other age that I've been in. I mean, this in fact is my third career. So I don't
Hmm.
think, as long as I'm healthy and able to, you know, uh, walk around this earth, I'm going to, always be thinking of myself as, contributing in a positive way. And I think there's a lot of us in the same boat. And so we're all saying, hey, I want to live differently than my parents did. I want to be referred to differently. I want to be treated differently. And I thought, what if I put something out there like Silver Savvy? And I think that it's much needed.
I agree. I agree. I love it. Okay, so Laura Lynn, first official question. Are you an impatient entrepreneur?
I'm an impatient human, first of all.
Yeah.
I'm an impatient person, but yes, I am an impatient entrepreneur. And I think, um, I also have had the opportunity I lived in the corporate world for a very long time. So, somebody used to refer to me as a thoroughbred, that you always had to hold me back. Always had
Hmm.
to hold me back because I had a tendency to want to just plow in and just,
Hmm.
get going. And that you can hit a lot of speed bumps acting that way, behaving that way. So I learned early on to harness that energy and build discipline around that impatience. So, I mean, my husband and I, he'll tell you all day long that I'm extremely impatient. Um, and he's very chill. So that makes us a great partnership. But yes,
Yes.
I
Hmm.
am an impatient entrepreneur, and I'm impatient for the success that I think Silver Savvy will have.
Hmm.
I'm impatient around getting the word out. You know, I think that leveraging the online community and figuring out how to get the message out and get all the wonderful things that we're able to offer out as fast as possible, it
Hmm.
keeps me up at night. But at the same time, I have to be disciplined. I have to put, cadence in place. I have to partner with the right people to help me do that. I have to have, measurements in place. So I've done a lot to put guardrails around that incredible energy
Hmm.
so that
Hmm.
I can ensure my success. And if something isn't going as planned, smartly change the plan so that I don't, you know, lose track of where I'm going. So, but yeah,
Right,
I'm
right.
impatient.
You're in good company. What are you most impatient about right now?
So I think changing the dialogue around aging. I think, you know, one of the things that I found was very interesting about my background that was a little bit unusual was, I came from financial services, so I came from a Wall Street background where we certainly had our eye on retirement. We certainly had our
Hmm.
eye on aging, but we talked about it in terms of a number that you had to save. And
Hmm.
then when I moved into home care, I was a unicorn. To have someone like me running around the home care marketplace, I looked at the world very differently. So I, what I see is I want to change the dialogue around how we're aging, and I want to change the dialogue around how we're talking about it. And I don't see a
Hmm.
lot of us talking about critical issues facing those of us aging. You know, the 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 Medicare environment has changed the way hospitals behave, and families aren't completely prepared for what is happening. They're not prepared for the acute care that they now have to face when they bring a loved one home far sooner than they've ever done that. And that's something that I
Hmm.
talk about quite a bit. In fact, today I was standing in line behind a gentleman. I saw he had a knee brace on, and I couldn't help but ask him, "Oh, did you just have your knee replaced?" And he
Hmm.
had, and he was
Hmm.
climbing up the stairs of our old town hall. And I said, so isn't it interesting? Back in the day, you'd be in the hospital for about a week. And I said, how long were you in the hospital? A day or two? And he said, actually, they sent me home the same day. And his wife said, yeah. And I had to take care of him. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the way the world is changing. Our healthcare system is changing. We're not talking about this impact and the fact that, daughters and daughters-in-law who primarily provide care are providing, upwards of 600 billion, according to AARP, in unpaid care a year. And the number is going to increase. So we're not talking about that as a nation on a regular basis. We're not talking about the challenges of living with chronic diseases and what does that mean in terms of the economy, in terms of how that's going to impact your family, your loved ones, and so forth. So to me, I've got my work cut out for me to pick and choose what I should be talking about and find those venues to be able to pass on that information as fast as possible so that families can be better prepared than what I saw when I was in home care.
I'm so curious about, when we think about different population sets who go through, what's the right way to say this? Need a voice for the voiceless, or might be traditionally marginalized. And it feels like the over 60 set is being marginalized for a few different reasons. One, you just don't feel like you're over 60. So it's like, what do you want me to talk about? I'm 40 on the inside.
Right.
Or just I'm living my life. I don't want to talk about it. Or then, or you go through an acute event and maybe you lose your voice and your power, literally or figuratively. And then anyone who might speak on your behalf is caring for you. Or I'm just kind of thinking through, like, this is so fascinating to me that, there's not really a full-throated movement around providing dignity and a voice to the generations ahead of us who, have lifted up the people behind them, but now they're in this new season and it's silence around them.
And again, I completely agree. I found, this is where I think, my insight is a little bit unique because I saw all the planning that we do as a financial services industry. I see the families getting ready for retirement, but we talk more about what do you want to do when you retire, and what, how much should you save for vacation, and let's make sure you have a certain amount of money in the bank for healthcare. But we're not going to really talk about that. And there's a whole universe of things we need to be thinking about around getting older, so that families are not all nearby anymore. We're kind of on our own in a lot of ways as we age, and then some of us. We may have some things hitting us. We might be quite active. Maybe we've got a little bit of arthritis, or maybe we have, a small healthcare situation, and we don't need to rely on pharma. What are the alternatives that we could be leveraging in order to stay healthy and active that's not going to necessarily rely on pharma? And so, to your point, I think where the world is geared towards youth, I certainly see that. And I understand that and I appreciate that. And I'm not discounting that. What I'm saying is, in addition to, given that we're going to be the largest demographic in the world for generations, you'd think that we would have a much larger voice at this point. So right now, I feel like I'm one of the few that have that megaphone. And hopefully I'm going to focus on the right things because, we're not all sick. A lot of us are, I've got friends that are in their 70s, they climbed Kilimanjaro. And I've got a lot of very healthy friends that are doing quite well. Like I said, I'm on my, my third career, but, I really feel passionate. And it's funny because I've always been somebody that, took on things that could have been considered a bit underdog. What are you doing that for? You could be doing so many other things, It's like, yeah, but you know what? I've been blessed and I feel as though I am an advocate. And when I get something, under my skin, I am going to go after it with a vengeance. And so this is going to be my way of giving back and saying, you know what, I've got you, and I'm going to make this my life's work.
Amazing. Amazing. So throughout your career, How have you fueled yourself to be the leader you need to be? Are you, I find entrepreneurs to be almost to a one that all they love to educate themselves and to, continue education. They read, they listen to podcasts, they go to trade shows. Like, how have you found that you really enjoy fueling yourself to be the leader you need to be?
Well, it's interesting. I didn't necessarily grow up. I had the opportunity to work with some incredible people in business and be surrounded by people who came from, fancy colleges and incredible backgrounds. And I say to myself, I didn't come from a corporate family. I came
Mm-hmm.
from a very, I came from a blue collar family that was often in crisis.
Mm,
So, at the end of the day, although I had a lot of people around me that loved me, my immediate family, they were in crisis. So there wasn't a
mm,
lot of focus on me growing up per se. In fact, I became, that caregiver, believe it or not,
mm,
7 years old. So
mm,
7 years old, became a caregiver, and I had to sort of figure out on my own what was important for me to grow and for me to learn. And so I was a good student. I remained a good student. My father was an avid reader of books. He really drove that into me. In fact,
mm-hmm.
I have a table at a local library that was built, and the table has a plaque saying, to my father who taught me the value of a good book. And
Mm,
he always
beautiful.
had stacks of books.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically benefited from that. So I believe in constantly reading, constantly learning, surround yourself with the best people. I worked, in a very competitive environment in financial services for very competitive companies, and I did very, very well for
Mm-hmm.
a long time. And I think a lot of that was, fear of failure. I was on
Mm-hmm.
my own. I did not have a lot of pride around what work you gave me. I was very happy to have work. So I did not, I wasn't going to ask you for a promotion in 5 minutes. I was
Mm-hmm.
going to work as hard as I could to build a reputation, and I did. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think all of that paid off. And eventually I realized, I really want to do something on my own, and
Mm-hmm.
ended up jumping out of that corporate world when I realized I had enough money to be able to do that,
Mm-hmm.
and found myself as a caregiver in home care, which is hilarious that I ended up in home care caring for other people's crisis. But you
Mm-hmm.
know what? I had learned how to stay calm. I learned how to be that beacon and that North Star, even during COVID. When everybody else was shutting down, my business was thriving, and I think there
Mm-hmm.
was a recipe for success there, and I understood that.
Mm-hmm.
Even when people were petrified of going into homes and caring for loved ones, I made sure
Mm-hmm.
that my staff was taken care of. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've always had that strong North Star no matter what, and I think that's really helped me
For
throughout my life.
sure. For sure. In your reading, have there been any books that you feel like have been particularly formative to you in creating your point of view or your style?
Well, I remember someone giving me when I first got out of college, because like anyone coming out of college, I dressed like a college kid. My uncle gave me Dress for Success, and I always, in fact, I just came across it the other day and laughed because I read that book cover to cover. But I'm always we've when I was in business, we were always given, we're always going on offsites and whatnot. So we were always given books, Good to Great, and It's
Yep.
Your Ship. In fact, It's Your Ship. I go back to that book. I'm not reading it currently. I'm actually reading Blue Ocean right now.
Mm-hmm.
But It's Your Ship is a fantastic story around a commander who was assigned one of the worst performing ships in the fleet, in the Pacific
Mm-hmm.
Fleet, and he took it to number one. And he didn't just take it to number one, but it's actually been it still performs as a top ship in the Navy. And the story around how he did that, and how he basically empowered his staff, his at the lowest levels, to understand what their goals are, what their mission is, the role they play. And he made sure that he was part of the whole management by walking around. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as you know, I mean, you embody that for sure. Management by walking around, you have to know who your people are. You have to know what motivates them, and you have to show that you're no better than anyone else, even if you are, and even if you are
Mm-hmm.
more skilled or you've got those leadership skills. And so I actually, in any industry I've been in, I'll hand a caregiver that book and say, read
Mm-hmm.
this book, and whatever they get out of it, we can at least have a dialogue around it. And so
Right.
that's something that I actually have it in my office here. But I'm reading Blue Ocean right now. which is about innovation
Mm-hmm.
and, the red and blue oceans.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us play in that red ocean of, competition and
Mm-hmm.
limited margins, and we're trying to grab each other's market share as opposed to looking for those new markets, which kind
Mm-hmm.
of SilverSavvy is a bit of a blue ocean.
It
Um,
is, yeah, for
and I'm,
sure.
I'm, I'm hoping that the innovation and surrounding myself with amazing people like your organization and others will continue to keep me innovative and looking forward to and not be afraid of trying something new and different,
Mm-hmm.
because I
Mm-hmm.
do think that there's a need, as the rest of us and the rest of the generations that may not have been online initially are online now,
Mm-hmm.
and looking for resources to help them age better.
Well, it's interesting because in if you're talking about a red ocean situation, the consumer is well aware of the competition, and they're choosing by value prop or price or whatever, they're making their choice. When you are innovating, you have to let the consumer know that you exist, and you have to create that demand. And so like, yes, this thing you need, there's actually a solution for it. And so it's a unique situation to be in, because people often don't have these opportunities of this is a totally new offering and service, and there's a lid for this pot. And so doing that education around just existing in the first place, um, is something that not every business owner has the opportunity to face.
Well, it's funny. I used to be criticized because, when I was in business, you're supposed to know who your competition is,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
we dealt with, large Fidelity Investments is who I worked for at one point. And, we knew who the other competitors were, but I didn't necessarily know what their offering was, because I always felt like I was doing something better than anyone. And we were
Hmm.
always I was always recruiting from there. So what do I care
Hmm.
what they're doing? Because I wouldn't want to work there, and anybody that I'm recruiting is coming from there.
Yeah.
I did the same thing in home care. When someone say, "Who's your competition?" I'm like, I don't have any,
I don't care.
because I don't look at, yeah, I don't care. And is that bad? I don't, and is that arrogant, or is that or am I just lazy, or what is it? But I felt like I don't know who my competition is, because I don't do things the way they do
Mm.
things. So I don't really want to spend the time. All I know is the phone is ringing off the hook. I'm hitting the mark. My revenue is going up. I'm double digits in every way.
Mhm.
And I'm and in the home care game, it's all about caregiving recruiting. And
Mm.
I have people
Mhm.
flooding my office every day looking for a job.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
by all accounts, I don't really care what the competition is doing, because I know I'm going to be doing better than them.
Yes.
So yeah.
It's so funny because I once worked for a company, and was really trying to help them like get their message across, and what is it we do here, and who are we serving. And anytime I went to the owners to say, okay, well, let me help, give me some input here so I can really formulate this for you. And they're like, well, what is our competition doing? And I kept being like, they only wanted to talk about what the competition was doing and just engineer for or against that. And it was so maddening to not. And so I said, okay, well, why do you exist? What are you looking to do here? Make money? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I don't think we're a fit for each other.
Well, that's it. I think people, and I think I've been, as I look back, I guess some of the things I've done have been somewhat fearless. But again, I tell people I'm actually probably one of the laziest people there is. I have this incredible fear of failure. I'm not even kidding. Like, I look around, I'm like, who's going to be there for me if it's not me?
Mm,
So that's been like that my whole life. So I'm
interesting.
no different now. It's just a
Well,
question of me.
lazy is not in the top 100 words I would even begin to think about you. So,
Oh, you kidding me? If I could sit on the couch all day, I would.
yeah, but
I would.
but that doesn't serve your goals. You're
Watching
very
movies.
goal oriented.
I am. I am.
Uh,
But, I think one of the things is you know, I talk about this. I actually have an opportunity to coach women who feel as though they've hit that ceiling in business. And,
hmm.
we talk about that busy work, making sure that you're working on the right things, because
Hmm.
being busy every day isn't necessarily, a plan to succeed.
Yeah.
And even myself, I find myself, and well, I know, being somebody working on my own, you can get caught up in some of the minutia of things that
Hmm.
aren't going to drive your business. And, why you have to really analyze, why are you doing that, and make sure you're working on the right things.
Yep. I had someone on the show a couple months ago talk about, you're doing fake work. Like if you're not driving revenue, if you're not moving the needle in the business, but you're busy, you're doing fake work.
That's it. Absolutely. Absolutely. If it's not doing something to, bring in new revenue or bring in clients or,
Mhm. Mhm.
I actually, when I was in home care, I started a group throughout Massachusetts of different home care owners in New Hampshire too, because they kind of wanted to know, what are you doing that's so different, And I said, well, I have a plan, but at the end of the day, here's my plan, and here's how I'm doing it. Here are my, key performance indicators, and let me talk to you about what you're doing. And I would hear this so often. I just have to get my operations to a certain point.
Mm,
Then I'll go out on the road. And I was like,
mm,
oh my God. And there's a whole recipe around how to address that. And if you don't want to address it, then you're gonna stay stuck.
mhm.
But if you do address it, here's how you address it, because you don't have to get everything perfect before you go out on the road and
Right,
sell, because you need revenue to pay for
right.
what you're putting in place.
Exactly, exactly. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good.
I
Just,
love
just,
that. I love that saying.
just ship it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so switching gears a little bit here, and looking back at your careers, your wonderful careers, what is something that's happened where you felt like the rug totally got pulled out from underneath you, and you thought, I just don't know if we're going to survive this. But ultimately, turned out to be one of the best things that could have happened. Put you on the right course. You learned a powerful lesson. Whatever it is. But from an abundance mindset, you realize that this is the thing that needed to happen to move you forward.
Well, it's interesting. I think of two things. If I could have two things, because
Sure.
one of them kind of one of those things kicked me out of financial services. So, my whole identity was financial services, Wall Street. That's what I did. That
Hmm.
was my cocktail party story. I had a million stories. Survived ups and downs of Wall Street. I survived all sorts of, arbitration stories, and I was really entrenched and was very proud of my career. And I was also by all accounts, successful. So I was in the top performers in my company.
Hmm.
And then when the market crashed in 2008, I was moved back to Boston, and I was up against some very talented people, and I became redundant. What?
Mm,
And I had never been redundant in my life, but I was redundant.
mm,
And I thought, you know what? I'm in trouble. A lot of turnover. I ended up getting laid off, left with a feeling of failure,
yeah.
for the first time in my life. And thought, what did I do to myself?
Hmm.
But it turned around. I went to Ireland the next week. I went to cooking school. Then I went to Cordon Bleu. I started doing things that I had never done before,
Hmm.
because I never had the time, never, ever, ever had the time to do
Hmm.
anything for myself. It was always for everyone else in my company.
Mm.
From there, I went into consulting and started dealing with large Fortune 500 companies, and then thought, you know what, I want to own my own company. So that was one area of my life that I thought, I'm never going to get out of this. I'm
Hmm.
never going to get out of this. When my licenses expired, I was a 24. I had a bunch of licenses. I cried. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, that's the end of my identity.
Yep.
You
Hmm.
know, that's sad, isn't it? But then I went into home care, and I thought, okay, mistake number two, because I was not received well initially. You're not a nurse. We're not. You're not a nurse. You're not a nurse. Over and over and over. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? So I was very reticent to tell anybody. I actually had a successful career, and I'm in a world. I'm a world class administrator,
Hmm.
and I know how to build businesses. And I was very, very. I lacked confidence for probably a good year, and it cost me some revenue.
Hmm.
Then one day I thought, you know what? I'm just doing this. I'm going out. And those people that told me I'm not a nurse, well, here's who I am.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, I righted the ship. I had one company, and I said, you know what? I'm so good at this. I'm going to buy another company. And then I bought another home care company, and I had all these people, and I did it differently, and I did it my way. And I'm so proud of myself for getting my confidence back, because I lost my mojo for a while. So,
Yeah.
I would say to anybody that is facing huge changes and headwinds, to just be true to yourself, and know that if you've done it once, chances are you're gonna be able to do it again. You just have to maybe
Hmm.
talk about it a little
Yeah.
bit differently.
Yes.
And somebody once told me, just wash your face with some warm water go to bed and get up and try again. And that's basically what I did.
I like that. I like
So here we
that.
are.
Well, in the power of the transferable skill set too, I like when I've had the opportunity to coach younger people, or they're like, "Well, I can't do that. I've never done that before." I'm like, "Yeah, but you've served in the military, or you've done XYZ, or you ran a daycare center or whatever." But that applies. It's the art of the storytelling where you educate people on how that experience translates into what you're facing now.
And it's funny because, you I went through, I don't know how many zillions of dollars worth of training. And for a minute, I forgot all that, I
Mhm.
forgot all that. And then one day I was like, blah, 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 wait a minute.
Yeah.
Um, but again, I did it. Um, I had to kind of write myself, because you just have to be confident.
People love to tell other people, oh, well, you don't fit this preconceived notion of whatever I have in my mind of this role that you're trying to fill. So therefore, sorry, that doesn't work for me.
It's
uh,
easy. And I think a lot of people over 50 are going through that, in business. There's a huge challenging marketplace right now for people that are extremely talented,
mm,
that are looking for, career opportunities and whatnot. And they're struggling because either they don't know how to talk about themselves, or the world doesn't look at them as a viable resource when, quite frankly, you know,
doesn't get much more valuable.
I would think,
Yeah.
I would think,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Uh-huh. Show me all that you've done. I was going to ask you what caused you to exit your home care businesses?
Well, it's interesting. I had always had the mindset that I would sell. So the
Hmm.
idea
Hmm.
is, grow the business to a certain point and sell, grow the business to a certain point and sell. And I wanted to see uh, what that would look like. And I wanted to get into a business that, quite frankly, wasn't 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Mm.
Because you're dealing with people in constant crisis.
Hmm.
And although I will say I enjoyed it, it was, you're coming out of COVID, you're dealing with, just a very high, intense environment. And I felt as though I needed a break, and to sell the business would teach me how to do that. So I'm actually I have a couple side hustles where I work with other business owners to sell their business, and the
Mm.
expertise that I have, because I was able to sell the business at a very high multiple
Hmm.
to a venture capital company.
Mm.
And they put me through the ringer. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, I'm not a Fortune 500 company. Are you kidding me? You're asking me for all this? But you know what? I did
Hmm.
it,
Hmm.
and now I've got that experience under my belt.
Nice. Well, good for you.
Yeah.
In your in addition to the high multiple, you're happy with your exit terms?
I am. I actually, we're just finishing up some of the terms actually yesterday,
Mm.
because we had a little bit of a holdback,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that was part of the negotiated sale price, and they have been amazing, and we actually
Good.
just finished it up on Monday. So yeah, it was a 3-year deal,
Okay.
and yeah,
Okay.
so I couldn't be happier. I'm
Nice.
I'm I'm like, I did it right, yay!
Yeah. Yeah. I was
Check
actually
that off.
I was at a conference the other day, and I was able to listen to some folks talking about exits, and like it's some astronomical figure where founders don't get the full amount that they sell for, basically, like
Because they're motivated
85%.
by other things. They're motivated by things that, their legacy, and they want to make sure their manager's happy, and they want to and you have to balance that with the value of the business, and really, really, really making sure they understand the value. And it was funny because as they were negotiating, my broker, she was incredible, but she couldn't talk about the business the way I could. And
Hmm.
I was not getting that number I wanted. So I put together a whole beauty sheet around why my business was worth what it was worth and what they were going to get. And boom, the price came up to exactly what I wanted.
Nice.
And
Nice.
yeah, so I learned how
Hmm.
to sell my business.
Well, that and the negotiated terms are tied to performance post sale. And so they might get some small lump sum at closing, but then as it goes on, it's like, oh, well, it's not performing as we thought it was going to. So now you don't, here's the clause, you don't get the balance. So that's part of it
Yeah, I didn't
too.
I didn't have any of that. I made
Good.
sure that because I'm like, I don't know you. You could
Yeah.
blow my business up tomorrow,
Hmm.
and I don't want to be responsible for your style. And in
Hmm.
fact, they did a lot of things that I wouldn't have normally done. They
Hmm.
changed the complexion of the business in a way that I wouldn't have done that, but that was up
Hmm.
to them. They could do what they wanted. And
Yeah.
so to your point, negotiating all of that out so that I wanted, the day I closed, I was in Ireland like 2 days later. So I was
Nice.
like, I don't want to be worried about, what you're going to do with the business. And sure enough, when I got calls going, you're not going to believe what they're doing with the business. I'm like,
Hashtag not my
I
problem.
yeah, hashtag, yeah, this is why we negotiated what we did.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I mean, I had an aunt, all my family are in business, and I had an aunt who did that. And the poor lady, she had an answering service, and she sold the business with all these hooks, and she ended up not getting what she had initially negotiated. I felt awful for her.
Mm-hmm,
So
hmm. Well, no surprise there that you're smarter than the average bear.
incredibly lucky.
All right, so let's go back to when you were a little girl and
Yes.
you're growing up, and sounds like you went through your own fair share and probably more than your fair share. And was there a part of you or a personality trait of yours that you perceived as a weakness, either through direct feedback or indirect feedback, that part of you was a weakness, but now today you realize that that was your superpower all along?
Absolutely. I grew up with a family very focused on themselves. My parents were always in crisis, personal crisis. So my brother and I were sort of left off center, and so we were kind of left on our own. I mean, when I say latchkey kid, I'm talking latchkey kid.
Mm,
So there wasn't a lot of hope for us. There wasn't a lot of, if they get to baseline, that's a good, even today, I'll have, holidays with my family, and, my brother and I are considered, we're very blessed, and we're probably the most successful out of all of our family.
mm,
And
mhm,
I don't think that's by accident.
mhm,
But at the end of the day, we were ignored. And so we had to kind of make things happen for ourselves. So here I am, a very lower middle class, probably, less than lower middle class, working to get into a very competitive, ultra high net worth environment.
mhm,
And there wasn't a lot of people rooting for me,
mhm,
and I did it anyway.
mhm,
And I started at the bottom. And, there's a lot of stories around all of that. I have an incredible sense of humor. I look back on my sense of humor, and I was able to navigate through some really difficult situations that, you talk about the Me Too movement and whatnot. I
mhm,
navigated through all of that very successfully with my sense of humor and my ability to just stay focused on the goal while
mhm,
keeping my own dignity intact.
mhm.
And so I think as a little kid, I wasn't criticized. I was just completely ignored. So I don't know what's good or bad,
Mhm,
what's worse, getting criticized or not getting any feedback at all. But at the end of the day, really building on that North Star. And I have incredible faith, and I
mhm,
think that helps.
mhm,
And I believe even as you age, there's this whole ecosystem of aging and what makes somebody more successful in their aging journey than others. And one
mhm,
of them is faith. And I think that has saved me and gotten me through a lot of, in fact, I'm just unpacking my stuff now, and I have, my father used to buy me Bibles every Christmas. And I'm like, Dad, if the ending has changed, then buy me another Bible. Otherwise, if the ending hasn't changed, I don't want another Bible. But some of those Bibles are marked up. I mean, I relied on those Bibles in my teens and in my 20s.
uh-huh,
That, was very important to me to keep myself grounded.
mm,
And I think I didn't necessarily always believed in myself, but if I didn't have myself, I had no one. And I think
mm,
that has made me, so I care for others, and
mhm,
I watch out for others because I have an incredible capacity for love and care and compassion. And I'm not bitter. I'm actually quite blessed. So I've
mhm,
never looked back and said, you know what, that was a terrible thing that happened to me. No, not really, because I'm very resilient. I make
mhm,
friends easily. I'm extremely customer focused. I know what customers want. I have a sixth sense for reading a room.
mhm,
And when you're 85 years old and everyone's ignoring you, I'm the one that's going to look at you and say, tell me what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me has been my secret sauce.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, they would have been like, yeah, she's going to be an ops person and she's never going to do much better than that. Look at me now.
What era were you on Wall Street? What was that time frame?
So I left in 2017.
Okay. Wow.
So I was 1987 to 2017. So I got out of school in 87, market crash in October. What? So, everyone's getting laid off, but I was working till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night doing trade entry. Mm-hmm. And they're like, wow, she's a machine, let's keep her. So I was always, never said no, I never complained. And, good and bad, because there was probably some times I should have been recognized and I wasn't, but that's neither here nor there. I navigated through that properly. But so, my financial services career was a huge chunk of my career.
Yeah.
And that's where I met my husband. So my husband's from financial services as well.
I mean, I bet you do have some stories from bad behavior.
I have some stories and some funny stories. There are some things that I did I'm like, that was pretty funny what I did.
I bet you didn't take a lot of fools. Didn't suffer a lot of fools, rather.
I didn't suffer a lot of fools. I didn't. But, sometimes I was quiet and I felt like that was, as I talked to somebody once, because I did get counsel more than once in my career, because sometimes you just have to make sure that you're not crazy. And then the idea is, if you want to stay in this, you have to navigate this properly. And, I was definitely in some of those typical situations that you see in the movies. But at the end of the day, I just was able to navigate it.
Yeah. Very wise. Okay. So as we get close to wrapping up, what's a piece of advice you can give our listeners to make their lives and businesses stronger and better today?
Well, I think as we, two things, as we talked about earlier, having that perfect infrastructure as you build your business is never going to happen, nor do you want it to happen. And you can see, I've worked with companies who are small startups all the way up to large Fortune 500 companies, and the ones that struggle are the ones that focus too much internally. So stay focused on your client. Feedback is a gift. Always ask, how am I doing? How can I be better? Keep your eye on, that next market opportunity, and make sure that you're not looking for that perfect operation. Number two, it's a lonely world, right? We know that being an entrepreneur, it can be really lonely and your head can get in the way of everything. How I combat that, and it's not perfect, but how I combat that is I surround myself with really smart people who oftentimes know more than I know, usually know more than I know. I join groups, I join organizations in my industry. I stay connected. I network. So it's a way to combat the loneliness and avoid all the stress eating. But yeah, I think, making sure that you're focusing on your customer, making sure that you are doing things for yourself. I talk about self-care a lot in this business that I'm in now. And part of your self-care as an entrepreneur is connecting with others outside of what you're doing in order to keep yourself sane, because you're not alone. And as a woman, this is and I'm sure in talking with other folks, this is the hottest market for women right now. Women are getting into entrepreneurship at a record pace for all sorts of reasons. But at the end of the day, this is a hot topic. How do we stay sane as a solopreneur?
Absolutely. Well, fabulous advice, of course. Thank you for being one of my besties. Thank you for being our aging bestie and helping, giving a voice to those who need it. You're just a gift and a light, and I'm so thankful for you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been a joy. I really appreciate this opportunity. So thank you so much, Lauren.
Absolutely. Well, we'll put the links in the show notes, but tell people where to find you if they're driving down the road right now.
All right. Awesome.
So silversavvy.com.
Oh, I'm sorry, silversavvy.com. I apologize. Silversavvy.com. And so it's one word, silversavvy.com, or hello@silversavvy.com. And I will promptly reply.
Yes, you will. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Impatient Entrepreneur. Love the podcast? Be sure to share it with a friend or colleague and give us a 5-star review. You can also chat with us on Instagram or Facebook at The Impatient Entrepreneur Pod. Want to star on a feature episode? Head over to theimpatiententrepreneur.com to inquire. Thank you to the team at Quidar & Co. for believing in me and bringing this podcast to life. And thank you to Carson Childers for mixing and editing this episode. I can't wait to see you next time.